Welcome back to another exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV. I'm your host, Gary Malefsky, and the publisher of Cyber Defense Magazine. I have a very special guest sitting in the hot seat today. Kevin Kiley is the vice president of one of my favorite companies, OneTrust, because they cover the issue that is concerning most of us, especially since the Facebook breach, or when we look at privacyrights.org, all the records lost and stolen. It's an ongoing problem. It's about privacy. Kevin, welcome.
Thanks, Gary. So great to be on the show again, and a lot has happened, I think, since we met last. Privacy just continues to become more and more relevant. I think we're all increasingly aware of our data is out there and how it's being handled by companies. And now we're seeing a whole host of laws across the world giving us more powers as consumers. And so for a large organization, for an enterprise, complying with some of these laws that, they may want to do the right thing, but of course there's very specific obligations, and a lot of them carry a lot of overhead for the company. Our tools help an organization meet the requirements of the law and even go beyond that. So really giving them a way to programmatically address privacy and how they're processing personal information.
I want to quickly deploy a solution to help with privacy. I've got privacy policies on my website. I've got cookie policies and I've got my cookies, right? I've got encryption policies and I'm storing data and data at rest, data in transit, crypto. Am I doing enough? What am I missing, and what will OneTrust do to help me improve and ensure I'm in compliance? Because there are real legal implications, right? And there are fines now.
There certainly are. Big fines potentially. So let's look at the GDPR, which was kind of the catalyst for a lot of this discussion over the last 2 years. The GDPR, of course, went into effect in May of 2018. And since then, again, a whole host of new laws taking shape. We're here in California today, where the legislature passed the California Consumer Privacy Act not long ago, last summer. The CCPA, again, expanding the rights of individuals and being able to take control of their information and make sure that a company doesn't sell it and ask questions about what's being tracked. Fundamentally, a lot of these laws have the same basic requirements that you must be transparent about what it is you're collecting and the purposes that you're using that data for. So if we go back to the GDPR, again, an organization at a base level has to have some reporting of what processing activities they're performing. What data I'm collecting, why did I collect it, for what purpose, was that clearly communicated to the individual, and did they perhaps consent to it, was there a good reason behind it? And then ultimately, the individual, and this is true again across all of these laws, has the ability to say, I want out. Right to be forgotten, however you want to refer to it, that you have a way to say, no more, I'd like my information back, or I don't want you to share that with anyone else or do anything else with it.
And if I work with OneTrust, are you working as a consulting firm? Are you working as a software package I deploy? Are you an auditing engine in the cloud? How are you deployed to help these companies get in compliance?
Right. So the laws, as I say, have a lot of very specific requirements that organizations have to comply with. Again, putting together a registry of all of those activities that I'm doing, what data I'm collecting, etc. It may sound pretty simple, but none of that is static. So it's constantly evolving. How do organizations keep up with the different processing, where the data is going, what third parties do we use, a marketing agency, some outside entity that might be also accessing that information? Well, again, I have a requirement to disclose all of that, make sure that not only is the consumer aware of it, but that if the regulators want to come look, that I'm accountable to them. There's a lot of overhead for the organization to keep up with those sort of things. And again, that's typically where we'll start, is the collection and maintenance of some of that record keeping. Behind that, though, other obligations around managing the risk that comes with it, what vendors, as I mentioned, third parties that might be using the data on my behalf, who do they employ in turn, fourth party, fifth party risk that comes with it? Have I done everything to protect the individual's information throughout that life cycle? We have the cookie products, as you mentioned, disclosures around what's being tracked when a visitor hits our website. In the event that there's an incident or a breach, we have communication obligations. Again, I'll point back to the GDPR as an example here, where I have 72 hours to disclose once we become aware of an issue that there's been a breach. Now,
do you help inform clients on, if there was a breach, the best way to respond and communicate?
Absolutely.
To stay in compliance with the law?
I'll take another example. It's a little closer to home. Here in the United States, we now have breach laws across all 50 United States. Hard to believe that in 2019, there were some states that still didn't have it, but North Dakota, thank you. We've now got everybody covered. The challenge for an organization is you're doing business, let's say, in all 50 of those states. You may have different requirements across each of them. That patchwork of laws is intensely complex to understand what your obligations are. Look, when there is a breach, you're dealing with enough to firefight and try to hopefully lock down the bad guys and whatever's happened to your systems. Now having to understand all the nuance of those laws across 50 states and who you have to disclose to, what information you have to share, etc. Very, very complex. So,
and some companies are global, so we're looking at 50 states.
The problem just gets exponentially larger then.
And you can help them all.
We do. So
from
we'll
small
help them,
or medium to large.
Exactly right. As they look across all the jurisdictions that they have to navigate, we're going to help them answer those questions and make sure that they're ready to respond in a timely fashion that meets the law, if not exceeds it, in terms of what they have to share.
So if I'm global or I'm in a certain state and I'm not sure of the rules and I'm worried about compliance, how do I get in touch with your company?
Well, OneTrust.com, of course, is a website. We're here at RSA today, a major security conference, and I think most enterprise risk officers, chief privacy officers, etc., commonly get to run into us at these sort of conferences where we are looked at as a thought leader. We get to do a lot of great speaking and other engagement with our market. But the website, of course, has a host of resources behind that, a number of white papers. We are very active at publishing our own research. And I'll also mention our privacypedia.org website.
Say that again?
Privacypedia.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Privacypedia, like Wikipedia.
Exactly right, exactly right. So we've
great.
opened up a lot of our research there to understand, again, what are the different laws around the world, mapping those requirements that organizations have. And again, that is what powers our product, but we also make a lot of this available for free to individuals and organizations.
Excellent. This sounds great. So I would recommend to our viewers to visit OneTrust.com, learn more about what they're doing to help you reclaim the privacy and compliance on the data that you're protecting. Thank you again, and tune in next time for an exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV.